Hey guys, this is Flying from Off to Lens, and today we're going to talk about the new Portkeys LEYE EVF. In this video we'll talk about my experience using it, what I like or don't like about it, and whether or not I would recommend it. As always, this is my honest opinion after using this EVF for a few days. This review is based on using it on a Pocket 6K, but most of it applies to the EVF itself, regardless of which camera you intend to use it with. Before I start, don't forget to subscribe to see more videos like this one, and let's jump into it. So about a month ago, Portkeys reached out to me and asked if I wanted to test out their new EVF. I often say no to gear collabs, especially if it is something that I know that I won't use or that would be better in someone else's hands. This EVF however intrigued me, plus they have been very lovely to deal with. I have used the Zacuto Z-Finder on my original Pocket for 5 years, and when I moved to the C100 and C200, the EVF was included. After using the Ursa Mini Pro, the Pocket 4K and 6K, I got used to use the built-in screen or a monitor. However, there are still occasions when an EVF is better than either of my current options. I shot with this EVF for a few days and I decided to use it mostly when I knew that it would come in handy, and that is when the sun is super bright or when I need to have a very small setup. It also snowed in the Alps recently, so this was a perfect test to see how it would help in such conditions. So first of all, what is an EVF? Most of the cameras these days have some sort of a viewfinder, whether it is optical or electronic. And basically an EVF projects what the camera sees onto a miniature display. With an external one like this one, you also get some added features that may or may not be available in your camera. So when to use it? When you have no monitor. Over the past few years I got used to use a monitor and I still prefer one, but sometimes a monitor can be bulky. On one of my recent documentary jobs, for example, I would have loved to be able to properly see the screen of my BMPCC 6K, as I had to run a minimal setup when I was hiking and a monitor was too much. When it is too bright. Sometimes it might be so bright that even a monitor isn't bright enough, especially outside, and you just want to be able to see the image correctly. The snow is a great example for that. An EVF will allow you to adjust critical focus. Added functions. Not all cameras comes with a function that this EVF gives you. I am lucky with my Pocket 6K that I get most of it, but something like a mirrorless camera might not. It gives you another point of contact. When shooting handheld, having another point of contact is extremely helpful. I found myself to be very stable when using the EVF. I like using an EVF because I'm in my own world, and only I can see the image that I'm capturing. To stay compact. Having a small and compact kit is essential for run and gun or for documentaries, but also handy in a lot of situations. Now let's get into the EVF itself. First impressions. This EVF is super small and light, and actually very nicely built. To be honest with you, I was expecting it to feel much cheaper and more plasticky, but I was pleasantly surprised. The diopter is made out of wood and is very smooth. The pad is super comfy, and the best part about it is that tiny piece of velcro that allows you to attach it at the bottom so the flap doesn't just hang. This was an issue with my Zacuto Z-Finder I used to use on the OG Pocket. In addition to the EVF, you also get a HDMI right angle converter, an extra pad, a USB where the user manual is stored, as well as the power cords which are D-tap to DC or DC only. Portkeys also sent me some mounting options. Now I'm not sure if the EVF actually comes with these, but if it does, it is a nice touch. You essentially get all you need to mount the viewfinder in any way you want. I just attached the clamp to my cage, and then since the EVF features a rail at the bottom, it is pretty easy to unlock it and move it whilst it is mounted. I found this very easy to use when on a field. Features and specs. So the body itself is pretty simple. You get an HDMI port to connect to your camera, a DC in for power, which is what I use since I power it from my Vlog battery, as well as a USB-A 5V. On the other side, you get your menu buttons with up and down, as well as exit. On top you have 4 function buttons, which are quite handy. I have mine set up to essentially match my Pocket 6K. I have false color, picking, grid, and zooming. I won't go too much into all the functions or monitoring options since you get quite a lot, but essentially on top of the 4 that I've just mentioned, you have also 3D LUT, Luma, waveforms, histograms, tints, audio meters, zebra, battery voltage checking, and more. At the bottom you also have a NATO rail as well as 3 threaded holes for more mounting options. Now about the screen. It is a 2.4-inch LCD panel with a brightness of 300 nits, a contrast of 1100 to 1, and a resolution of 1400 by 900, and it can accept signals of up to 4K 30p. It is a bit tricky to show you what the screen actually looks like, but here are a few images from the PDF of the menus that are provided in the USB, so you can get a better idea of the layout. And then of course you have the diopter, so people with different eyesights can use it. And in terms of price, this EVF is only $399 USD, which is actually pretty good. I can't really think of any other EVF in this price point that would offer the same features. So now let's talk about the things that I like about this EVF. As I've mentioned before, it is very light and small and fits nicely onto my rig. And it also happens to be super comfy, which is very important if you intend to spend hours looking through it. The function buttons. Having those 4 customizable buttons at the top can save you time, and it means that you also don't need to go through your camera menus or settings as often. It is loaded with traditional features such as frame guides, zooms, false colors, and depending on the camera that you own, this can be a very valuable aspect of getting this EVF. You also get an extra pad. It might not seem like much, but not every company would do this. The diopter is smooth and nicely built, and I like that this EVF works with HDMI since I don't currently have an SDI. I love that it also features a NATO rail and 3 threaded holes for mounting options. This means that it will probably work with any accessories you already own. And most importantly, it does what it's supposed to, and does it pretty well. After using it for a bit, I actually got very used to it and found it odd to look at my BMPCC screen. I didn't think it would become that automatic, but after a while, my eyes seemed to go for the EVF first, which is a good sign. It reminded me of that shooting experience that I had with my C200 and my original Pocket. I love to be able to only see what I'm shooting, and I found that it helps when framing or simply just to fully concentrate on what you're capturing. What I don't like about this EVF. To me, the biggest issue with this EVF is that the resolution is a bit on the downside. It would be amazing if this was 1080. The second issue is that the screen is a tad too small. I really wish that it was closer to 3 inches, but since the product is quite small, I understand. And I think that the fact that my Pocket 6K built-in screen is 5 inch, it also doesn't help when going from one to the other for comparison. The menu buttons could be different because at first I kept hitting the up and down instead of the menu or vice versa. A simple dot or different texture for the menu one would help. When I first turned it on, I had to change the settings by quite a lot since the tint was off. The image has a slight magenta look to it, but I managed to fix it within the menus fairly easily. On some occasions I noticed that the edges of the screen were flickering. I'm not sure why, and it didn't happen all the time, and it also didn't prevent me from shooting. I wish that the HDMI was on the left, since I use a top handle and most of my other cables are on the left, but this applies mostly to my own setup. And finally, this EVF has no SDI. For me it isn't really an issue, but depending on the camera that you own, it might be. So as you can see, these points are not really deal breakers, but worth mentioning to you guys as always. Would I recommend this EVF? I found the Portkeys Viewfinder to be a great option for mirrorless or small cinema cameras, such as the Pocket 4K or 6K, as it has most of the pro features you'd expect. It's affordable, compact, and easy to use. So yes, I would definitely recommend this EVF. Sure, it isn't perfect, and the experience would be better if this was 1080 or with a slightly larger screen, but for the price you get something that is small, comfortable, loaded with features, and with a decent build quality, so I find it really hard to complain. It does a really good job at helping you achieving your frame that you want to capture, and it made me excited to be shooting with an EVF again. That's it for today guys, I hope this was helpful to you. Be sure to subscribe to see more videos like this one, and let me know in the comments if you're thinking of getting this EVF, or if you're shooting with one at all. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.